So hi, my name is Kujo. So last week I finished a book called The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying by Sogyal Rinpoche. Hopefully I said his name right. I'll put it on screen just in case that I didn't. But that book is pretty damn long, and it's a book summarizing the beliefs of Tibetan Buddhism. I'm not going to talk about the book like a ton. The book is just pretty much educational on like the process of a Buddhist belief and Buddhist practice. But a few traditions from the Tibetan Buddhists I really liked. I just wanted to talk about, and it had me thinking about a concept in my head that I'm going to try to articulate in this video. Also, the footage for this video I'm going to be showing is from a game called Buckshot Roulette. You can find the game on itch.io, but I'm going to pin a comment that has a link to the game in the comments. The game is really cool and you should check it out, and it's only like $1.20. It's pretty short, but you should support the dev. I think it's a really cool game. But anyway, the Tibetans lived a more like wilderness-oriented lifestyle where they lived in like tents and small villas and stuff like that, from what I understand. But a lot of the Tibetan lifestyle is centered around death and taking care of the elderly and the process of dying. So the youth in the Tibetan tribe actually center their practice around taking care of the elderly, and then the gurus in the tribe, there's appointed gurus in the Tibetan tribes that help pass on the dying into the afterlife and guide them into a better rebirth in their next life. Which, reading this book made me really actually love that. I love a culture centered around taking care of the elderly and making sure they have a good passing into death, because I feel like the West neglect the elderly. Like, we put them in elderly homes and kind of like tuck the elderly back into the corners of our communities. At least that's my experience. That's how I view old people homes, is like, we don't want anything to do with you, so we're all just gonna shove you into a spot together. And I think that honestly, it just really sucks. But anyway, I like the Tibetans' take on it, where their whole tribe is centered around taking care of the elderly and making sure that they have a good passage into death. And the Tibetans have a belief that the consciousness actually sits in the body for a few days. So when an elderly person dies inside of their tribe, they let the body sit for a few days to make sure that the consciousness passes on very peacefully into its next life, and the guru helps them alongside that. I haven't read this book yet, but the Tibetan Book of the Dead is a foundation for the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. But the Tibetan Book of the Dead is a book where you read it to someone who's dying, and the words inside of the book is supposed to bring peace to the person who's in the process of dying, and then guide their consciousness through the process of dying to make sure they make it to the next rebirth that's supposed to be better for them, or to transcend them to nirvana, which I'm not really sure how to explain this, but there's like 6 different realms that you can enter in what they call the bardo, which is different states of living and dying. But in the bardo of becoming, your consciousness has an opportunity to transcend, but it is normally roped into a temptation to earth. They believe that life and death is a cycle, and that the bardos are essentially a stage of the cycle of life and death, and that there's bardos in between life and death. So after you're dead, you're going through a bardo of becoming. So you're becoming, and then you live, and then the living state is a bardo, and then the dying state is a bardo, and then the reincarnation state is a bardo. So you're infinitely in a bardo, basically. But once you have learned everything necessarily that there is to learn in life, then ideally you get transcended. This is the root belief of Buddhism, and this is specifically what Tibetan Buddhists believe. But it got me thinking about death more and more, and I had like this epiphany, or this thought that I've kind of had a thought about, but it really hit me after reading this book. Something in the book that it talks about is, supposedly, while you go through death, you have an experience of a life review, where essentially the entirety of your life kind of plays back to you in the span of 2 minutes. So the highs, the lows, everything that your consciousness or your mind can remember just completely runs through it all. A life review of what you did right and what you did wrong. But this thought kind of made me think about the experience of me talking to this mic right now, or recording this video, is a point in time of my life review. How do I experience it? Like, maybe right now, while I'm recording this, I'm laying on my deathbed. Like, the root of my life is from the deathbed, and that I'm reliving essentially everything that I've been through. So I'm living my life review, if that makes sense. But I had this thought, and then I was thinking about like, okay, maybe I'm on my deathbed right now, and actually the life that I'm living is the life review I'm having for my deathbed. I mean, realistically, it's probably not true for both me and you that's watching this. I mean, maybe it is, maybe it's not. But I was thinking about if I believed that, like if I was on my deathbed right now, it makes me think about if the thing that I'm doing with the time that I have is something that I am proud of on my deathbed. So it really made me think of the importance of like doing everything in my power with every moment that I have in order to ensure the best quality of life for myself and for other people inside of my life. Like, how can I manage the best balance of the two and create the most overall good? Because if I'm on my deathbed right now and I'm reviewing my life, it's just like joy upon joy upon joy. And this is something that the Tibetan book argues about. Like, if you live a life of compassion and living for others in virtue, or just living a good life, that the death that you have is going to be calm and peaceful because you're reliving essentially like a wonderful existence that was full of just compassion and joy and well-being and a wish for well-being for others. And if you don't live that way, if you live in a pleasure-seeking, high and low life of just chasing gratification nonstop, the death that you have is going to be extremely painful because you have to relive all of those moments of just pain and misery and the roller coaster of highs and lows that you had to go through, and then leaving an overall like bad karma behind. If you were to believe in reincarnation, the actions that you take in this life that you are living right now are going to affect the next life or lives that you have. So if I believe in oneness or an interconnectedness of all things, which is something that I believe, and I'll explain why here in a minute, that the actions that I take are going to affect the lives of multiple things out in the world that I don't even have a comprehension of. It's going to do way more than I realize. The reason I believe in interconnectedness is because of where I'm sitting right now. I'm sitting in a chair that was manufactured by somebody, that the parts of the chair were probably manufactured by other people. The microphone I'm talking into was manufactured by somebody entirely separate from that. And the computer and the desk and the things that I write with, they're all made by different people. The room that I'm in and all this different stuff, the food that I eat, it was just pulled in from so many different sources and so many different things that there is so many beings that play a part into actually creating the things around me and the life that I live, that everything has to be interconnected to make Cujo a thing. And the Cujo thing that I'm doing is going to play a part in changing lives potentially. Many different things that I say and many different things that I talk about could potentially change the lives of multiple people and then alter the course of actions that they take in their life, and then therefore they could create more cool things that can help people. So there's just an interconnectedness into everything that you do, whether that's good or bad. You can do bad that affects multiple people that you won't even see, or you could do good that affects multiple people that you don't see, or you might see it. But arguably, with karma being a thing, your actions affect multiple people that you will not see. I think a really good piece of media that actually captures this is Death Stranding by Hideo Kojima. It's one of my more favorite games for the symbolism. Maybe not the game itself. It is a walking sim. It was pretty chill, but as a narrative and as a story, and talking about interconnectedness and how connection is what determines the well-being of all of us, really, as an individual, it puts the importance on living the best life that you could possibly live, like, into the forefront. That I need to make sure that I do the best that I can for myself and for others in order to kind of save the world in a sense, like to leave the most good impact onto society and for my own well-being going into death. So in every moment, I kind of have this thing of like, I'm laying on my deathbed right now. What is the thing that I want to be thinking about on my deathbed? Should I take part in like gratification for the now and just very like pleasurable short-term gratification things, or do I actually want to do the best that I can to help people out in the world and around my vicinity, and potentially not even in my vicinity? Obviously, I want to go with the latter. I had that concept in my head after reading the Tibetan book on living and dying. The Tibetans live in a way where they prepare to die. They try to do everything that they can with their life that they have in the moment in order to be ready to die, and to die a peaceful, content death. Which I think a lot of the people in the West here, they don't acknowledge death. Like, they see death and then kind of push it under and don't like to think about it. And the reason for that being is potentially, I think people are living in a way where they won't be proud of when they die. But I think that life and death is happening on a micro scale and on a macro scale all the time. Like, you get bored of a video game in like a week, and then you move on to the next video game, and it's just kind of a cycle of life and death. If you're a gamer, it's just the nature of things anyway. Like, you'll get bored of a certain activity, and then there's something that's new and exciting. It's a cycle of life and death. It's the same with that micro scale as on like our lives, and then like on cultures or societies. So if you're watching this to this point, I would ask yourself one question right now. What could I do in this current moment that me on my deathbed would be extremely proud of? Maybe it's something small as in telling someone close to you that you love them. Or maybe it's taking steps towards an education that you want or a career path that you want to make a difference inside of the world. You don't have to stew upon death. It's not something that I think you should obsessively think over, but calling death to mind to use it as a tool to live in the best way that you possibly can, I think is very healthy, and not enough people here in the West do it. It's the small actions that you take daily that are in the choice of good over evil that will add up in your lifetime, and in old age you will be a wise guru, and everyone who is young will look up to you. And if not, you can at least be proud of yourself and move fiercely brave into death, knowing that you did the most that you could. And I think that that's all I would want with my life, is to know that I tried to create love and show love to the people around me and the people out in the world that desperately need it and desperately deserve it. But anyway, yeah, I would recommend either the Tibetan Book of the Dead. It's not one I've read yet, but I'm probably going to read it here soon. Or I would recommend the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. If you like Buddhism, or if you're interested in Buddhism, I think they're really good books from what I understand. At least I really like the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. It was very long, but I learned a lot about the Tibetan culture, and it taught me a lot about how I should live my life too, and how I want to live my life. But yeah, anyway, I would make those recommendations to you. If you found any value in what I said, I would encourage you to like, comment, or subscribe. It helps out this channel a lot. I really hope you guys have a good weekend or rest of your week. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. I love you very much, and take care of yourself. Goodbye now.